U.S. President Donald Trump insists negotiations to end the war with Iran are ongoing, even after Tehran had repeatedly rejected his claims and dismissed a 15-point proposal outlining U.S. demands, countering it with a list of their own demands. Trump had earlier warned Iran of significant escalations in intensity if it fails to enter a deal with the U.S., as he reiterated Washington's ability to prolong the fighting until its goals are achieved. Speaking at a fundraising dinner for his Republican Party, Trump said Iran's denial of ongoing talks is out of fear of being killed by their own people.
We're winning so big, nobody's ever seen anything like we're doing in the Middle East with Iran. And they are negotiating, by the way, and they want to make a deal so badly, but they're afraid to say it because they figure they'll be killed by their own people. They're also afraid they'll be killed by us. There's never been a head of a country that wanted that job less.
Meanwhile, U.S. attacks have continued to strike targets across Iran, including in Isfahan, home to military bases and the infamous nuclear site, where residents reported major explosions. Israeli attacks are also continuing in Lebanon, where the IDF says it's continuing to dismantle networks of Iran's proxy, Hezbollah.
אנחנו מרחיבים את רצועת הביטחון הזאת כדי להרחיק את האיום של הנ"ט על יישובינו ועל שטחנו. אנחנו פשוט מייצרים אזור חיץ גדול יותר. עכשיו, סוגיית פירוק החיזבאללה היא עומדת לנגד עינינו. הדבר הזה קשור גם במערכה הכוללת עם איראן, שהיא עדיין בעיצומה, בניגוד למה שמדווח בתקשורת.
Meanwhile, Iran is continuing to fire its retaliatory barrages at Israel and neighboring Gulf Arab states hosting U.S. bases. The death tolls across the various fronts have now risen to over 1,500 in Iran, 1,100 in Lebanon, 20 in Israel, and 13 U.S. troops. Oil prices remain stubbornly high as the crucial Strait of Hormuz continues to be closed, with Brent crude, the international standard, trading at around $104 a barrel on Thursday morning.
German Defense Minister Boris Pisto has ruled out any military involvement in the Iran war while hostilities continue, but suggested the Bundeswehr could help secure the Strait of Hormuz once a ceasefire is reached. Speaking in Canberra on Thursday, Pistorius emphasized that Germany does not want to be drawn into the conflict, though it's prepared in principle to join an international mission to protect a vital trade route after a peace agreement. Pistorius has also described the Iran war as an economic catastrophe, which is why he stressed a ceasefire is urgently needed. The visit to Australia marks a significant expansion of defense ties between Berlin and Canberra. The two nations have agreed to simplify troop deployments and collaborate on a new space-based early warning system designed to detect threats to global satellite networks from powers such as Russia and China. Australia also plans to integrate German-made missiles into its own production lines as global military resources are stretched by the ongoing conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East. Pistorius stated the move is a part of a broader strategy to diversify security partnerships and reduce one-sided dependencies as Germany continues to increase its military presence across the Indo-Pacific.
Russia continues to wage its war in Ukraine, launching 153 drones in overnight attacks on the country as 6 regions face power cuts following strikes. 5 people were injured on Thursday morning after a Russian attack on an apartment block in Dnipro, according to regional officials. Power outages are affecting 6 regions including Odessa, Sumy, Chernihiv and Kharkiv following strikes on energy infrastructure, Ukraine's Minister of Energy reported. Ukraine's armed forces said that while 130 of the drones were intercepted, 16 hit their targets and downed debris fell in 5 locations. Meanwhile, at least 20 people were injured on Wednesday, including 7 in the Kharkiv region. Ole, a Kharkiv region resident, described the attack.
Я посмотрел на камеру, у меня камера стоит, и увидел, что моя машина горит. Но потом я уже, когда вышел, машина полностью сгорела. И вот это все произошло. Но был очень сильный взрыв был такой. Дом задрожал полностью.
The easing of US sanctions on Russian oil earlier this month is further enabling Russia to finance its military campaign in Ukraine.
Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un held talks in North Korea's capital on Thursday and signed a friendship and cooperation treaty. Lukashenko, who was in Pyongyang for the first time on a 2-day official visit, hailed the document as fundamental and said that relations between the two countries are entering a new stage, according to his press service. It also quoted Kim expressing solidarity and full support for Belarus and speaking out against, quote, unlawful pressure on Belarus from the West. Belarus and North Korea are part of a push driven by Chinese President Xi Jinping and Putin to create what they call a multipolar world to challenge Western hegemony. They have both provided Moscow assistance in its Ukraine war, with Minsk serving as a launchpad for the invasion and Moscow stationing tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus.
Draped in a French flag and carried by 10 soldiers, Lionel Jospin's coffin was carried into the courtyard of Les Invalides in Paris. French President Emmanuel Macron paid tribute to the former socialist prime minister who died last Sunday. The head of state praised his work at the helm of the government between 1997 and 2002.
Lionel Jospin a, durant ces années, modernisé la vie économique, sociale et démocratique de la nation de manière inédite. Il a contribué à faire entrer la France dans ce siècle qui s'ouvrait.
As Prime Minister, Jospin reduced the working week to 35 hours, extended free healthcare through universal health coverage, and introduced civil unions that gave unmarried couples, including same-sex partnerships, equal rights to those who married. Lionel Jospin will be buried at Montparnasse Cemetery.
Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has advocated for enhanced energy cooperation with Algeria during an official visit to Algiers, aiming to secure gas supplies for Italy and the wider European Union. The North African nation already provides 30% of Italy's natural gas, primarily via the Transmed subsea pipeline. To expand this, Meloni wants national energy giants Eni and Sonatrach to collaborate on shale gas extraction and new offshore exploration projects. Italy currently generates over 40% of its electricity from natural gas. The government is racing to replace lost supplies from Qatar, which halted production following repeated Iranian attacks on its major LNG sites. While exports note Algeria has some capacity to increase shipments, it cannot fully replace the shortfall from Qatar alone. However, domestic gas demand in Italy has decreased by 19% since 2021, potentially easing the immediate pressure on the national grid. Meloni warned that the ongoing war in Iran continues to disrupt global energy markets, cautioning that a prolonged conflict could have devastating economic and social consequences for vulnerable countries across Africa.
A 42-year-old former French police officer suspected of murdering 2 women was arrested in Portugal. The victims were revealed by authorities as the suspect's current and ex-partners, whose bodies were found in Serra de Nogueira in the northeast of the country. The former cop, Cédric Prison, had been wanted by French authorities for several days prior to his arrest in the Iberian nation. Officials say he was detained by Portuguese National Republican Guard forces during an inspection on a major highway for forged documents and the illegal possession of a firearm. Prison was also traveling with his 2 children, aged just 13 and 18 months, who were found safe and taken to foster care institutions. Following his detention, Portuguese officials were alerted of pending French warrants for his arrest over charges of kidnapping his current and former partners and the 2 children. Media outlets say it was Prison's eldest son who had provided information on the burial site of the 2 women to Portuguese law enforcement. A delegation of the French gendarme is reportedly being deployed to Portugal to take custody of the suspect.
Dame Sarah Mullally has been made the first ever female leader of the Church of England at Canterbury Cathedral at the age of 63. Malali, a former cancer nurse who became a priest at the age of 40, celebrated the beginning of her public ministry as both the primate of the Church of England and spiritual leader of the worldwide Anglican Communion on Wednesday. Attendees at the ceremony included Crown Prince William and Princess Catherine, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and representatives from the Vatican. The celebration marks a major milestone for the Church of England. The Church ordained its first female priests in 1994 and its first female bishop in 2015. Malali's appointment could increase divisions in the Anglican Communion, whose members are deeply divided over issues such as the role of women and the treatment of LGBTQ+ people.
A church in the village of Rapoto in Thessaly, central Greece, has become a tourist attraction for visitors eager to test their sense of balance. This is because due to ground subsidence, the church shifted down the mountainside and now leans at a 17-degree angle, much steeper, for example, than the Leaning Tower of Pisa in Italy.
Το βλέπαμε σε βιντεάκια, δεν το πιστεύαμε αυτό το πράγμα. Νομίζαμε ότι κάνουμε πλάκα, τελικά δεν κάνουμε πλάκα. Είναι αδιανόητο, η εκκλήσια είναι τρομερή, σου φαίνει μια ζαλάδα. Άμα δεν το δείτε από κοντά δεν μπορείτε να το καταλάβετε, αλήθεια.
Ήταν απίστευτο το πώς κατεβαίνεις στα σκαλιά και ξεκινάς και νιώθεις την κλίση σιγά σιγά. Κάπου λίγο φοβάσαι, κάπου λες ότι εντάξει, το κάνω. Πήγα προς το κέντρο και πάλι έλεγα θα φύγω, θα πέσω, πήγα από την απέναντι πλευρά, πήρα κλίση ολόκληρη. Είναι πολύ ιδιαίτερο το συναίσθημα αυτό που σου δίνει.
Due to the subsidence in the village, the residents were forced to abandon it in 2012.